Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the DFS Army Killshot Podcast. I am Kyle Marley. With me today is Clint from the Die Hard MMA Podcast. We're going to break down this UFC 277 card for you guys from a betting and DraftKings perspective. I know we have a lot of fans of Clint in our DFS Army Discord, so I'm glad to have him on the show today. Excited to talk about these fights. How you doing and how you feeling about this card?
Doing good, Kyle. Doing good. Thanks for the invite, man. Always love talking fights and doing shows with you. I like this card. I'll be honest. I have a lot of action on this card. I think there's a lot of betting opportunities here, and some of them sketchier than others. I'm sure we'll get to that, but it should be a fun one, man. I think there's opportunities for us this week.
Yeah, sketchy is a good way to put it, I think. It's a card I don't feel good about for sure on DraftKings. I think there's a lot of ways you can go this week. But it's a pay-per-view, and they're giving us $200,000 up top. So it'd be awesome to have somebody, on the show win the $200K would be great. But if not one of us, then somebody listening would be awesome as well. So
absolutely,
let's get right into it. The first fight on the card, we got Orion Kosuke versus Blood Diamond. We got Kosuke coming in minus 190 against Blood Diamond plus 160. I think this is going to be a good one. I typically like my curtain jerkers for DraftKings just because you got lower level talents. They're usually more likely to get finished, in my opinion. And that's kind of what I'm targeting here is I don't think the judges will be needed in this one. We got Kosuke, who is the wrestler, versus Blood Diamond, who is the kickboxer. And Kosuke has some cardio issues that we're worried about. So I think if everything goes well for Kosuke in this fight, he has big DraftKings potential. But if he does dominate in the wrestling early and slows down, that's going to open the path for Blood Diamond to come back, get a TKO of his own, and score well also. How do you see this fight going down, Clint?
I think you just nailed it, man. That was short and sweet, and in my opinion, perfect. Like, we're going to expect Kosuke to come out and look to take this thing to the ground. He's got that, wrestling background. He's got a couple submission wins on his record. We saw him try to impose himself on Phil Rowe, but he falls off a cliff. He hits round two. If he doesn't have you out of there, the guy tends to slow down and gas out a little bit. He has gone late. He has gone and gotten third round finishes and a couple situations like that. So not entirely sure if it's like an all the time problem or just maybe a young fighter management type of issue. But man, he came in and looked awful on the scales this morning. So I've got a feeling that those cardio concerns might be something that we see pop up tomorrow. And his opponent, Blood Diamond, man, I got to tell you, Kyle, this has been a spot where all the people I know and respect, all the smart people out there, even myself, we've been picking Kosuke all week. And the hairs on the back of my neck are just telling me to stay away from the favorite on this one, especially with Kosuke missing weight. I feel like maybe we see the real Blood Diamond on Saturday. He's going to have the striking advantage, and we've seen how Kosuke gets a little bit wild and leaves himself open to be countered. I agree with you. I don't think there's going to be judges involved, and don't forget, folks, we're in Texas. You don't want to bet on a fight when the judges are going to be involved in Texas. So, yeah, violence is the answer here for this first one.
I like it. I didn't even know Kosuke missed weight. So, yeah, that's interesting. I'm going to have to check that out. But at the same time, I would think, that would help him if his plan is to go in there and wrestle. I am going to be on the Kosuke side of this one because he's the one with the higher ceiling. If his game plan is going to work, it should be to go out there, take this guy down, land some heavy ground and pound, maybe look for a submission. But if he finishes the fight at all, he's going to score well. And I also think that if he has the gas to go 3 rounds and have that wrestling-based game plan, then he can also score over 10x in a decision. So I like Kosuke, but Blood Diamond is the better striker here. Maybe Kosuke comes out looking to take his head off. I could see, Blood Diamond just picking him apart on the feet. Or what is more likely is he just gasses Kosuke out from the wrestling, knocks him out in the second or the third round. Either way, I do think Blood Diamond would score well, so I want some exposure there. But I just wasn't overly impressed with what I saw of his kickboxing skills, to be honest with you. So I don't think he's that much of a worry until the gassing out possibly happens. So give me Kosuke, but just overall a good fight to target in GPPs. I wouldn't want to trust these guys in cash games, though. All right, let's move on to the next one. We got now the new favorite, Nikolai Negumarianu at minus 120 against Ihor Potieria at plus 100. On DraftKings, we got Potieria. He is the favorite in this one because the lines come out early in the week. He was the favorite at that point. But the line has shifted. So now we're paying, $8,400 for technically an underdog in this one. I do think that'll take away from his ownership and at the same time raise up Negumereanu's. But how do you see this fight playing out?
This one's interesting, man. This is my Dana White Contender Series fade spot where Ihor is getting a lot of activity and a lot of attention coming in here. He's got some questionable wins on his record, so I'm not sure just how UFC caliber he is. And I'm not the biggest fan of Nick Negumereanu, man, but the one thing the guy is durable. So if we've got a guy who comes in and is a power striker and tends to, blow through some low-level regional competition, I think Nick Negumereanu is kind of the perfect guy to stand in front of that. I don't expect him to get knocked out in round one. And if he doesn't get knocked out in round one, I think he's the guy with the UFC level experience that can win this fight. So I got in on Nick early. I got him at plus 130. He's sitting about minus 120 right now. And I think he deserves to have been the favorite from the jump on this thing. So hoping not to be holding that closing line value trophy at the end of the week this time around. And in DK, you're the DK expert, man, not me. I would think that Ihor is the guy that's got some serious potential upside here. Nick may be a later finish on this spot because he does hit pretty hard, but more than likely probably implements some grappling, pushes his man up against the fence, maybe even takes him down, where we've seen Ihor has absolutely nothing off of his back. I kind of think Nick Negumereanu by decision is maybe the way to go, and I like him to win the fight.
I like it. I like the CLV for sure. And I really have no issues with it at all. I kind of see this as close to a coin flip fight. They're sort of similar fighters. I thought they're not going to blow you away with volume. Neither one of them are going to go out there and chain wrestle at all. They're both just okay strikers with decent power. And I just was a little bit more impressed with Poteria's power, his aggressiveness. So I went with him for that reason. But on DraftKings, we do have minus 200 fight doesn't go to a decision line. So typically that's a good thing for DraftKings. If you get a finish, especially in the mid-range price fights, it's going to be a good thing because they'll probably score over 10x and they have a good chance at 100 points also. But this is a fight where we're really relying on that finish. If neither one of these guys get a knockout, I don't think the winner would score well in the decision. I don't even think they would hit 10x. They might score, 60 to 70 points. Whichever guy it is that wins. And that's kind of what I'm looking to avoid with some of my hand-built lineups. But at the same time, that knockout's definitely in play on both sides. We got Ihor's plus 175 inside the distance. Negumereanu's plus 200, just a slight edge to the Pretoria side. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, with the ownership possibly being lower now on the Pretoria side, I'm going to be more interested in him. So he's going to be the guy that I'm more likely to click on. But I'm not against getting away from this fight and just hoping that it, makes it out of the third round. You might be all right scoring-wise on DraftKings if that happens. Next one on the card. We got another tough one to call on DraftKings. I mean, tough fight just in general to call. We got Jocelyn Edwards minus 115 against Ji-Yeon Kim minus 105. So we got a pick 'em fight here. Edwards, the slight favorite on DraftKings at 8,300. Kim is 7,900 on DraftKings. I expect a striking match for 15 minutes in this one. And if we get near the volume of either of their last fights, then it's going to be a good DraftKings fight to target. But if we also get a more cautious side from either one of them and they're not landing at a high clip, I could see the winner of this one scoring 60 points. So I feel like we got a 60 to 100 range from the winner in this one. But how do you see it going down, Clint?
Yeah, I'm on the Kim side big here on this one, man. I know it's sketchy going hard and planting your flag on a low-level women's MMA fight, but to be frank, Jocelyn Edwards is somebody who just has not impressed me in her UFC run. Even her last fight when she won, she basically fought a punching bag and got away with a high-volume decision that she nearly lost. She almost got TKO'd in the first round by one of those knees. I just don't think much of Jocelyn Edwards in general. She missed weight this morning. She didn't look great on the scales. And Ji-Yeon Kim, they call her Fire Fist for a reason, man. She's got high volume. She hits hard. She has had a bit of a rough go in the UFC, but she's fought well against a decent level of competition so far in the UFC. And a couple of those decisions maybe went the wrong way. I feel like she's being a bit disrespected here. The line opened up minus 150. I actually set this line minus 150, minus 160 when I capped it myself. And then I saw a plus 110 on her when I went to go and look at the betting odds. I jumped in. I think this thing was correct when it opened. So I think there is maybe some upside in DraftKings for her to maybe get the knockout. She's fighting up at 135, so it's unclear if that's going to be, maybe a power advantage for her. I don't think that she's the type of fighter that cuts a ton of weight, so I don't know that power advantage is going to be a massive deal for her. It might just be kind of a gas tank and comfortability type of advantage. So if this ends up being a 15-minute decision, we're probably going to get a low-scoring women's MMA, 50 to 60 points. But I think of the two, Kim does have the upside to land some kind of a big shot at some point in this fight, especially if Edwards is at all damaged from having a bad weight cut. She missed by, I think, 1.7 pounds or something like that. So it doesn't look like she really sucked herself out trying to make the weight. She probably knew she was going to miss and just wanted to make sure that she could keep the damage to her purse minimal coming in. So kind of feeling like maybe we end up seeing a 15-minute decision here, but I do think Kim has some sneaky finishing upside, and she has been training with like Wiley Zhang and them. So if she ever decides to mix in the grappling and mix in some trips and some takedowns and things like that, some control time is possibly there. I'm in the Kim camp big time here, and on DK, probably a fade for me, but if I was going to pick one, I would still be picking Kim.
I like it. Yeah, I actually went with Kim in this one as well. Just a little bit more impressed with her overall. Edwards is coming off her most impressive performance in her last fight. She landed 164 significant strikes in that fight against a punching bag, as you mentioned. So it wasn't as impressive as it looks on paper, but she did score 99 DraftKings points in that fight. And if she does that at 8.3K at low ownership, I feel like she's going to be around 10% ownership this week. Then she is going to be a good play. But on the other end, Kim landed 170 significant strikes in her last fight against a better opponent than Jocelyn Edwards' last opponent. And she threw 375 significant strikes in that fight, which is impressive in itself. Even though she's missing most of them, just the fact that she can throw that many in 15 minutes is impressive. And she would have scored 98 DraftKings points if she ended up winning that fight. So if we can get a win from either of them with that kind of pace, they're going to be good DraftKings plays. I prefer Kim, not only because she's cheaper, but I do slightly favor her as well. So give me Kim in this one. I am interested in the Kim side. Really, in all formats on DraftKings, I like her for cash games because she has a solid floor. Even in a loss, she can score 40-plus points, which I like. But I do expect her to score, around 10x or more if she gets the job done. And she's one of my favorite underdogs to come through. So I will be on the Kim side. If I'm making 150 lineups, maybe I'll match the field, get 10% Edwards or so, but I don't see me making any hand-built lineups and putting Edwards in there, to be honest. So I'm going to say Kim or pass for the most part. Next one. We got the biggest favorite on the card, Michael Morales, minus 600 against late notice fighter here, Adam Fugit, plus 450. I didn't watch a whole lot of this Fugit guy, but from what I saw, I couldn't find any edges for him to go out and pick him, but I do think the line might be a little bit wide. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, man, I do think this line is just a little bit wide. He's not bad. Like, he's a wrestler turned BJJ stylist who fell in love with Muay Thai, and now he's got a sick striking game on him and prefers to strike over his grappling. But it's one of those things where he's got in his back pocket. He can always go to it. He's a BJJ brown belt from what I saw, but my guy Cody Safdie said he's a black belt. So maybe one of those things that he got upgraded, and I just wasn't able to find evidence on his Instagram of that. So he's going to have a grappling advantage belt-wise over his opponent here. And this is one of those spots where I feel like it's Fugit's got the man strength thing going on, right? He's 22 years old, taking on a 22, 23, 24-year-old opponent here. He's going to be the one who probably has that physicality edge. Problem is, Morales is fast. He's got those hands on him, man. And that's something that you can't ever really take away from him. Even though Morales might get outclassed in a couple of areas, he's always going to be able to just bop your head right off. So this is going to be an interesting fight. I don't think it's a bad one to target necessarily, because I do think Fugit's probably going to look to try to back Morales up, pin him against the fence, drag him to the mat, use that offensive wrestling. And with that belt advantage, I can see him scoring pretty well and maybe even pulling off the upset here in this spot. But if he can't control the grappling, I mean, he's probably going to look to bang on the feet. And with his opponent's hand speed, I do think that one of these guys is probably going to hit the floor sooner than later. This should be a violent fight. It should be a fun one to watch. I'm going to go ahead and pick Morales, but I'm not ready to trust this kid at this price tag just yet. And I think Fugit could be somebody that's flying just a little bit under the radar. So don't be shocked if he comes out and finds a way to win.
I like it. I have Fugit projected as the lowest owned fighter on the card. And
Yeah.
if he wins, I think it would be, a flash knockout or a quick submission. And he's going to score well if he gets it done. I wasn't going to be putting him in my DraftKings lineups, but I mean, at 5% ownership, I'm not against matching or even doubling the field if we think this guy has any sort of shot at getting it done. I like Morales. I think this kid's pretty damn good. 23 years old, big guy. He's quick. He's powerful. He's got solid wrestling as well. I just give him all the edges in this fight. He is the highest priced guy on the card at $9,500. But my prediction was a first round KO, and that would definitely pay off $9,500, maybe be one of the highest, if not the highest scoring guy on the slate. So he's going to be my preferred play in this one. But you might have talked me into a small amount of Fugit ownership just in case, at least as a hedge, if I'm making multiple lineups in this one. But I got to lean with the favorite. And I think he's a good cash game play as well. I think he's the safest play on the card. I would be somewhat surprised if Morales lost, whereas everyone else in the 9K range, I wouldn't be completely shocked if they ended up losing. All right, next one on the card, we got one that I don't really love for DraftKings. We got Drakkar Klose minus 215 against Rafa Garcia plus 185. Break this one down for me, Clint.
Yeah, man, I've been a well-documented Drakkar Klose hater. I'll be honest. He got to the point where he kind of felt like a lost man, gym hopping, the whole Jeremy Stevens thing. Like, I was looking for any opportunity to get on the other side of him here. But now he's back at the MMA lab, and he's looking better than ever. He ended up, beating a guy that doesn't necessarily belong in the UFC in his last fight, but it showed that he still knows what he's doing in there. He was able to eat a couple of big shots, really kind of showed out in that fight. So I'm kind of over my whole fade, my blind fade of Drakkar Klose. Rafa Garcia is a guy that I really like. I think he's got some upside. He's young, so he's going to be improving. I worry a little bit about his cardio, but I do love the grappling pace that he brings into a fight, and he can hit pretty hard. The guy's got decent hands on him. This should be a good fight, but I do think it's probably going to go all 15. I think that Drakkar Klose is going to return to his decisionator type of ways, unless he goes out there and tries to prove another point. If he tries to disrespect a guy like Rafa Garcia, Rafa will punch him right in the mouth and knock him out. So I'm a little bit concerned about the price tag on Drakkar Klose. Not overly interested in playing either of these guys in DK. It's another spot where I think it's a little bit dog or pass, but I am absolutely biased going into that. So you got to take that with a bit of a grain of salt. I can't really trust myself on this fight.
So for me, I was thinking on the betting line, it would be favorite or pass. I do like Klose in this matchup. I just think that he is the better striker. I think the majority of this fight is going to take place on the feet. I think round 1 would be the closest in general, but I feel pretty good about Klose in rounds 2 and rounds 3. Yeah. So if I was going to bet the fight on the money line, I would rather just take my chance on Klose. But to get a better number, I would rather just take him by points. But on the DraftKings side, man, he's $9,100, I believe. And that's just a little too expensive for, the volume he's putting out on the feet. It's nothing special. He's not going for many takedowns. And in this matchup, I think Garcia is probably the better grappler in this one. So it would be smart of Klose to just keep this on the feet, win it there. And I think the only way he's paying off $9,100 is with an early knockout. So I'm okay getting away from Klose at that price tag. And then on the Garcia side, I think he's going to have a whole lot easier time paying off his price tag at $7,100, because if he's going to win this fight, I would expect a decent amount of grappling success from him, whether he's landing 2-3 takedowns throughout the fight, hanging on to top control, landing some little punches on the ground. That can all score well on DraftKings. So I think he would be a lock for 10x or more if he's able to get it done. He could get a knockout. He could get a submission and be on the optimal lineup with 100 plus. So I think for DraftKings, I'm more so on the Garcia side. I might just get away from the fight in general. We got minus 190 that the fight goes to a decision. So I think it's one of the better fights to fade. If you're looking for fights to fade, picking Klose to win, but I'll say my preferred DraftKings play in all formats is going to be Garcia. All right, what do we got next here? We got, a low-level fight here, low level heavyweight fight, but it might be an important one to target for DraftKings. We got Dante Alves minus 190 against Hamdi Abdelwahab. Man, I don't think either one of these guys are very good. I would say that Mays is much more athletic, going to be the taller, longer guy, much better level of experience, more experience himself as well. Hamdi, he's got a Olympic Greco-Roman wrestling background, I believe it was. He had a couple bare knuckle fights on his record, but man, the guy he's fighting. They really look like they pulled him out of the crowd that night. Like no business being in a cage at all. I would say he has power, right hand, overhand right early in the fight. He could put guys away with that. They are big boys. And then it would really be him relying on his wrestling background to have another chance. So I think we're looking at a first-round knockout or a possible wrestling-based decision win, maybe like a TKO on the ground, something like that from Hamdi, if he's able to get it done. But if he can't get takedowns, I would expect Mays to kind of style on him on the feet, probably get a TKO of his own along the way. I would expect Hamdi to slow down faster. So the longer this goes, the more I would favor Mays. But man, Mays is just not good either. So it wouldn't shock me to see Hamdi get those takedowns and just have them work. I don't love paying minus 200 on Mays against anybody, to be honest with you. So I went and took the shot on Hamdi. I didn't bet him. I just went and took a shot by picking him because I haven't heard a single person pick him all week long. So I was like, you know what? I'll be the guy that'll make the terrible fighter be my pick. And I think he has a high ceiling. So I just think this is a good fight to target on DraftKings. I probably want, 25% or more of both guys, but I think I'm going to have more leverage to the Hamdi side, which is gross, but maybe it'll end up working out for me. How do you see this fight going down?
Hey, I love a good contrarian. I don't mind the look of going against the grain here, man. This thing opened up a pick'em, and the bettors have decided the line is minus 200. I capped this thing at minus 200, so I jumped in at minus 155 on Don'Tale Mayes. I know pretty much everybody is out here saying, I don't like Don'Tale Mayes. Don'Tale Mayes is bad, but I'm going to bet him. I've been kind of the only guy that was excited from Mays' last two fights to have an opportunity to put money on him the next time out. I think the kid is improving. He's a massive freak of nature, his size, his reach. He's working on it. He's putting his game together, just got promoted to BJJ purple belt. We saw some grappling chops his last couple fights. I think the kid, given some time, could potentially be a little something. My only issue here is Hamdi's just completely unknown. Now, I don't like that I'm going up against a potential Olympic level wrestler. That kind of back class is something that'll allow you to dig deep and get through situations and win a fight, that kind of situation. But man, he's coming in here on super short notice against a much, much bigger man. So I worry about the gas tank. I wouldn't be shocked if Hamdi wins round one, is able to get Don'Tale Mayes to the floor. But I wonder, how long is that gas tank going to hold up? He comes into BKFC and he's, dropping guys with one big overhand bomb. I don't know if he's going to be even able to reach Don'Tale Mayes' chin when they get in there. This is the first guy who's a legitimate heavyweight that he's actually going to be fighting. So I'm definitely in the Mayes camp. I'm not sold on Hamdi. He's going to have to come in here and show me. He does have that round one knockout upside. His arms are thicker than my legs. He's absolutely massive, but he's short. He's squat. He's going to have the T-Rex arms. So I don't know if he's going to be able to hit Mays the way that he wants to. And then if he does win with the wrestling, like you said, he's going to be laying on Mays for 15 minutes, which probably scores pretty well. Also, yeah, man, if Hamdi wins this fight for DK, that's probably a big time upside as far as his score is concerned. Betting wise, though, I'm in the Don'Tale Mayes camp of things. I think he's going to be able to mind the range, use those front kicks that he likes to use to maintain the reach and the distance. And if this thing does get dirty, if it does get into a scramble, you're looking at a guy in Hamdi that's probably going to look to wrestle, and Don'Tale Mayes can just kind of get on top of him and use that body, use that physicality, flatten him out, attack a weakened gas tank. I took a spot on the submission prop for Don'Tale Mayes at 20-1, man. Just a little degenerate stab here, because if we're looking at two guys that have a tendency to grapple, one of them just got a purple belt. I like attacking, poor or suspect gas tanks in these fights, because if he's too tough to get knocked out, but he's really tired, the man may tap. So I got Don'Tale Mayes by sub. I did bet on him, and I don't mind him from a DraftKings perspective. I think you can make an argument for both sides here on this one. I will be honest, though, after seeing how large Hamdi is at weigh-ins, I want to see these guys face off. I want to see the ceremonial face-offs to see just how big he is. But man, he is a thick human being. I'm not nearly as confident in Mays as I probably should be at this point. And when the whole world is all on the same person that started as a pick'em price tag, it always makes me a little uncomfortable. I get those Molly McCann flashbacks from the Tyler Santos fight. So I'm not comfortable here, man, but I am on Don'Tale Mays.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I mean, as a bettor, you've already done your job. You got the best of the line. I don't see it going back the other way. And I would not want to bet Hamdi in this one. I just think that the best way to get any kind of exposure to him would be through DraftKings, because if he does pull out the win, he probably scores all right. So that's more so what led me to picking him. That plus the plus money next to his name. But yeah, it wouldn't shock me at all to see Mays go out there and dominate him. Next one, we got one of my favorite DraftKings fights on the card. We got Drew Dober minus 170 against Rafael Alves plus 145. The line has been moving into Alves' direction basically all week long. I don't think the judges will be needed in this one, which is why I love it for DraftKings. But how do you see it playing out?
Yeah, this is one that I've struggled with basically all week, man. Rafael Alves is the guy that I haven't been able to really quite put my finger on. He's super deadly in round one. He's got a tight squeeze on him, even though everyone sees those submission wins that he's had. He's actually more of a kickboxer. He's a guy that's got big power in his hands, and he's got big head kicks. Drew Dober, that guy that just can't quite seem to crack that contender circle. He beats everybody up until the point that he fights a legitimate contender, but I'm worried about his durability. He's a guy that's been hit and hurt in a lot of his fights, even the ones that he wins, and he manages to dig deep and battle back in. He's rocked in almost every single fight. One of these days, that ultra chin of Drew Dober is gonna crack, man. He also sticks his head into panic takedown situations and is there to be choked sometimes. That's the kind of opponent in Alves that's going to take advantage of those types of situations. I think the dog is extremely live here, but he's not a dog that I love. I'm not a fan of putting my money on guys that have, perceivably one round to get it done. But the UFC just keeps on moving on Rafael Alves. Like they seem to be behind this guy. You know what I mean? His UFC debut was against Damir Ismagulov. You can make an argument that he won that fight. He almost killed the guy in the first round. He won the third round on all the judges' scorecards. Like he could have won that fight against Damir Ismagulov. And you know how much we all respect freaking Damir in the UFC. And then he choked out Mark Diakese. Now, what does that fight look like if it goes past the first round? I don't know. Maybe he does get ground out by D1 Diakese. But now they're putting him in there against Drew Dober. Like, the UFC is not stepping down on where they think Alves belongs in the hierarchy of this weight class. So I've got some interest in the dog, but at this point, I haven't made an actual bet. And I wouldn't mind, the inside the distance props for Alves. I don't know that he necessarily wins a decision here. This one could get interesting. I do think violence is probably the way to go. I have a hard time stepping in front of Drew Dober after everything he's done. He has been able to take the beating and come back and only loses to the best guys. So we'll find out Saturday, really, where is Rafael Alves?
I like it. Yeah, if Alves wins this fight, I think he's scoring 90 plus, 100 plus points. It's probably, whether it be an early knockout or an early submission, I think round one is his best chance because Dober can be cracked. Alves is explosive. He's wild on the feet. Good chokes on the ground. Dober's been choked out multiple times before. So I definitely think Alves is in play for a very high score. He could break the slate on DraftKings this week. So I like him a lot as an underdog play. But if he doesn't win in that first round, I just think it's going to shift over to Dober's favor. Dober is the better striker, more powerful striker, probably the better wrestler. That's why I also don't like Alves, because he's a really good grappler, but he's not a good wrestler. So I can't rely on him to get takedowns on this one. And I doubt Dober's going to be looking for the takedowns. He should just be looking to keep this on the feet. He could land a knockout in any round, but if it gets out of round one, I expect him to start dominating the fight and finish the fight in round two or round three. So I just love this fight as a whole. I want it in, 3/4 or more of my DraftKings lineups, but I'm picking Dober to get a late knockout in this one. I just think if he makes it out of the first round, it's going to be all Dober from there. But if you're on the Alves side, that's a great guy to be getting exposure to, because we got 2 title fights on this one, which means 2 underdogs have 5 rounds to work with. They will get a decent amount of ownership, where Alves might get overlooked more on this card than he would on another card without 2 title fights. All right, next one on the card, we got Matthew Semelsberger minus 155 against Alex Morono plus 135. Not one of my favorite DraftKings fights, but we should see, a pretty fun striking match in this one. Who do you like?
Yeah, I got Semelsberger here. This is a bet that I did go ahead and end up making. And man, I'll be honest, I feel like the bookies are trying to sell us some wolf tickets here. Everybody's super hyped up on Alex Morono. They hated this guy a couple of months ago. Everybody talked about how bad he is and how much of a bum he is. He beats a guy like Donald Cerrone in the first round who's ready to hang up the gloves, and suddenly he's the end all be all. They're offering a nice price on him, giving that plus money to people, and they're piling in. I bought low on Matt Semelsberger. I got minus 155 in my pocket. He's younger, he's taller, he's longer, he hits harder. Like, this guy has all the upside in the world. And we saw in his last fight against AJ Fletcher that even against somebody who's going to come in and look to grind on him, take him down, wrestle him, he's willing to die in there. He'll fight back through that adversity. He'll get back up. He knows where he makes his money, and that's on the feet. Morono's a guy that does not use the grappling advantage that he holds over most people that he fights. He just refuses to. He wants to go in there and brawl and bang. This could look a lot like the fight that Alex Morono had when he welcomed Chaos Williams to the UFC, in my opinion. If he goes in there and tries to bang it out with a guy like Semelsberger, he could get caught. We could see a 15-minute back and forth war, or I think Semelsberger has the finishing upside here in this spot, man. I think he's got Morono pretty much taken care of probably everywhere, skill set wise. You remember when they set Diego Sanchez up in his hometown against Alex Pereira? That's how this one feels to me. I think Semelsberger's getting the win.
I like it. Yeah, I really don't even have too much more to add to it. I kind of agree with everything you said there. The reason I don't love it for DraftKings is we got the minus 165 fight goes to a decision line. I am picking Semelsberger to win, but if he wins a decision, I don't think he's going to score more than 10x his $8,600 DraftKings salary. So I think we're relying on the knockout from Semelsberger. He could go out there, land a takedown or two throughout the fight, but I don't see him doing much with it. And I think that Morono's the better grappler, so it would just be smart of him to keep it on the feet. And then I also worry about volume. If we are going to go to a decision, Semelsberger was a little too hesitant in that chaos fight, so it wouldn't shock me to see Morono just out-volume him, get a close split decision in Texas. But I don't see much of a ceiling from Morono unless he does get a finish. Maybe he gets a knockout or a submission, scores 90-plus points from that. But I don't think we're going to see, the Morono that was landing 150-plus strikes against whatever that Bellator guy's name was. He's going to be a little bit worried about the Semelsberger power coming back at him. So I just expect a lower scoring decision fight if it goes there. But I'm going to pick Semelsberger to get a TKO, so I do want to get a little bit of leverage to him because I think he might go overlooked on this card with a lot of other favorites that people are going to like. So I agree with your breakdown. Give me Semelsberger in that one, and I think he can get a knockout similar to that Chaos Williams one over Morono.
Let's go.
Another one, next one on the card is another one that I'm not loving for DraftKings. We got Magomed Ankalaev minus 540 against Anthony Smith plus 420. I don't love this one for DraftKings because I'm picking Ankalaev to win. I mean, I think he's the real deal. Great striker. He's a good wrestler. He got cracked in his last fight against Santos. That was a little bit of a worry, but it's more so his lack of volume, his lack. He just wastes too much cage time for me. He's not landing a lot of strikes on the feet. He's not making an extra effort to finish the fight anywhere. I think if this goes to a decision, he would really have to wrestle a lot and keep a lot of top control time in order to have any chance at paying off his DraftKings salary. So at $9,400, I think it's kind of a knockout or bust type fight for Ankalaev. He could get it. I mean, he's got big time power. He's a great striker. Smith's been knocked out a lot of times before. So it's in play, but for $9,400, I would rather just trust the other 9K range. Even if Ankalaev gets a second round knockout, that might not be enough points on DraftKings. And then I also don't like the Smith side because I like Ankalaev to get the win. I just don't think it's a great matchup for Smith. I do think Smith could maybe win this fight on volume, get a close-based decision, but he's not going to score well that way. I think his ceiling would be, a knockout or a submission as well. So this is going to be a fight I might just X out of my lineups and hope that Ankalaev wins a decision. He probably won't pay off the salary if so, but how do you see it going down?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, man. I think this fight comes down to how hard does Anthony Smith want to push it? Because he's been talking all week about nobody's forced Ankalaev into an actual fight. And I completely agree with him that nobody has done that. He's one of the few guys that'll be able to physically match Ankalaev. He's going to have a reach advantage on him. He's, rated as 1 inch taller, but when they faced off, they were pretty much even there. So I think if Anthony Smith comes out with the idea of forcing a fight, I like that. I do think that might force a bit of a finish. Ankalaev, we've seen him hurt, man. We've seen him dropped by Thiago Santos. We've seen his arm snapped by by Crute. Not Crute. Damn, what am I doing here? Paul Craig. We saw his arm get snapped off by Paul Craig. So the guy is not invincible. I'm actually kind of a bit of an Ankalaev hater. He's one of these guys that everyone has crowned the next champion, and I'm not ready to give it to him. I want to see him actually tested here. And I think Smith is the kind of guy that can test him. The problem is Smith starts a little bit slow, and Smith can be taken down. If Smith accepts the bottom position and Ankalaev decides to go out and grapple, we could see another 15-minute, very boring fight where nobody does a whole lot of anything. However, if Ankalaev decides to go ahead and stand with Smith, Smith is the kind of guy that's going to give him a bit of something in the boxing range. He's got that long, stiff jab. He's got that nice lead check hook. He will cause some problems for Ankalaev. And don't forget when he knocked off Jimmy Crute's leg, he's got those hard leg kicks, and Ankalaev is very heavy on that front leg when he comes forward. So I think Smith is extremely live here in this spot, and Smith probably has the majority of the finishing upside. Ankalaev can ground and pound pretty much anybody into dust if he gets him in that position. So both guys could finish. I agree with you that I think this thing's probably going to go the distance, especially if Ankalaev plays it smart. But if it goes under, I kind of think it's Anthony Smith that's going to put Ankalaev in a bad position, and we really find out what the kid is made of when he gets there. And I would like to play a little bit of Smith inside the distance. I think he's 950 or 10-1 in that spot. And then, maybe a live entry. If you give up that first round, Ankalaev is probably going to have the majority of the success early. Anthony Smith, you might even get a better price tag than that plus 425 that we're seeing right now. But if you can see the signs of Anthony Smith starting to loosen up and Ankalaev maybe starting to slow down or making some of those bad choices, jump in on him live. I think it's a spot that we might be able to get live better than pre-flop.
I don't hate it. Yeah, and if I had to use this fight in a DraftKings lineup, I would rather just take a shot on the Smith side, to be honest with you. So I'm cool with that. And I do think he's going to make this look closer than the line indicates. All right, next one on the card. We got one I like all around. I think it could be a good DraftKings fight, but it should be a fun fight to watch. We got Alexander Pantoja minus 175 against Alex Perez plus 150. I would give Pantoja the finishing upside in this one, whether it be on the feet or the ground. I think the striking is going to be close here, but Pantoja's never been finished before. We've seen Perez get submitted multiple times. He got TKO'd by Joe Benavidez, I believe it was. So I just feel like Pantoja has the finishing upside, but he kind of needs to get a finish to pay off an $8,700 salary. And Perez is good. I give him the wrestling advantage here. And a striking match, if we're getting a close 15-minute striking match, I feel like that's going to be close to a pick-em decision there. So I'm more so on the Perez side because when Perez wins, he scores. He's never scored less than 87 DraftKings points. That's the least he's ever scored. And other than that, he's had like 96, 97, and all the others were over 100 DraftKings points. Whereas on the Pantoja side, he has 3 decision wins where he scored in the 60s. If he wins a decision here and scores in the 60s, then, I mean, you might as well take a loss at $8,700. That's not going to do you any good. So I think I'm preferring the Perez side in this one, but it wouldn't shock me to see him get submitted in the first round. Pantoja could knock him out in any round. So I definitely want Pantoja exposure as well. And I feel like I could be, 20 to 30% of either guy in this one. No real preference. But I'm picking Pantoja. I do think he's going to get a submission at this point, at some point in the fight. I just don't like how Perez just puts himself in danger on the ground. He probably will be looking for takedowns, and I think the guillotine is very in play for Pantoja. I wouldn't want to play his minus 175 money line, but the submission prop is like plus 400, plus 500. I don't mind a stab at that instead. But if he doesn't get that submission or knockout on DraftKings, I think there's going to be better favorites to target. But how do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, man, I hate the money line on this one. I really do. I'm kind of in the same boat where on Monday I broke it down and I picked Pantoja to win the fight, but I'm not betting it at this stage. And if anything, I would be looking at playing Perez by decision because I think it's like plus 350 or something stupid. The guy has a serious wrestling advantage. He's the bigger of the two fighters, probably the more physically imposing. We've seen Pantoja go on the back foot, accept bottom position, play jiu-jitsu off of his back. So if Perez can take him down and stay safe in the guard, I think he can grind out a 15-minute win here. On the feet, this thing's probably going to be relatively close. Pantoja maybe has a slight power advantage. So yeah, more finishing upside from Pantoja, more decision upside from Perez. But at the same time, if Pantoja doesn't accept bottom position, if we get a kickboxing match, this thing's anybody's game. Who knows who's going to win this fight? I don't feel overly confident on it, especially with Perez coming off that 2-year layoff. You'd like to hope that the guy made new, improvements to his game, added new wrinkles, and comes out looking like a new man. He very well could, but we don't know it. We haven't seen anything. He made weight at least, which is something we were all concerned with because he struggled on the scale before. I really don't know what to make of this one, man. It's one where I kind of want to sit back and take notes because I'm not sure who's going to end up getting it. So I'm kind of saying pick is Pantoja. But if I was going to bet it, it would be Perez by decision, maybe Pantoja by sub. I'd be looking for those big juicy numbers for the most likely outcomes for their fighters rather than trying to play a dart on something money line straight where you're just not going to get that good of a price tag, in my opinion.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I don't think we have to have it in DraftKings, but at the same time, they both have a chance at the optimal lineup. All right, we got to try and cut down some time. I know you're busy, so I'm going to make this one short and sweet. We got Sergey Pavlovich minus 145 against Derek Lewis, minus 650. Fight does not go to a decision. So this is a fight you just load up on in GPPs. Whoever you're picking, get leverage to that side. If it goes to a decision, it doesn't really matter who wins because neither one of them are going to score well if that's the case. So we're aiming for that knockout here. I'm going to pick Pavlovich to get it. All of his wins are in the first round knockout. If he gets that here, he's on the optimal lineup. If he doesn't get it in the first round, though, it wouldn't shock me to see Lewis get it in the second or third round. But either way, we probably get a knockout in this one. We probably get the winner on the 200K lineup. I'm going to pick Pavlovich. Who you got?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the Lewis side of things, man. I feel like Derek Lewis gets a little disrespected after a loss. Everyone just kind of is ready to bury him and leave him for dead. But his losses are to JDS, Daniel Cormier, Cyril Gane, and Tai Tuivasa, like all title challengers, guys that have held the belt. Tai is somebody who he had almost dead his last fight out before he pulled that crazy comeback. Yeah, I'm not ready to side with Pavlovich, who's beaten essentially nobody. He's going to have a speed advantage, but he seems like a good hammer, bad nail type to me. I mean, realistically, both these guys are kind of good hammer, bad nails, but I do think that the way Sergey wins is not just that one hitter quitter. It's more of a volume thing. He does hit hard. He is fast, but I think there's opportunity for Derek Lewis to be the guy who hits harder in a solo punch. And if he times a good counter, puts him away, you're flipping a coin here, folks. Like this is one, I'm not betting it from like a cash standpoint. I decided I'm going to pass on it because it literally is a coin flip. Whichever these guys lands cleaner first is probably going to win by knockout. They probably stare at each other for the first 5 minutes of this fight and then decide to go nuts in the second round. Like I could see the over 1.5 getting there because neither guy wants to lose. Derek Lewis is desperate to get a win in front of his hometown crowd. I don't know. I'm not touching it. I think you're right. Someone probably gets knocked out. Pick a side for DK. I'm not going to bet this one, but I am going to pick Lewis.
Yeah, I think if you got Pavlovich at plus money, then you got the right side of that bet anyways. But now I don't see how you can say that there's any value with basically a 60% betting line. So yeah, at this point it might be dog or pass, to be honest with you. If you think it is a pick 'em, just take that 5% edge on Lewis. But just load up on DraftKings. That's the way to go. Hope that the winner gets it done in round one. And then if you can get the other 5 spots right, then maybe you win 200K. So that's my plan in that one. I'll be heavier on the Pavlovich side. All right, we got 2 title fights to break down here. We got both of them are rematches, actually. We got the first one, Brandon Moreno, minus 215 against Kai Kara France, plus 185. Moreno won this fight back in 2019 where he won a striking match. They didn't even go to the ground in that one. And I like him again here for sure. But if they have the same type of fight as they did in the last one and you add on an extra 10 minutes, then the winner's probably not going to score enough, especially combined with all the ownership that they're going to have as a title fight. Like we can't have the same fight as they had last time. So I'm really hoping that Moreno looks to go to the ground a little bit in this fight. I think he has a big edge on the mat, whether it be winning minutes or locking up a submission. I think Moreno's dangerous on the feet. I think he's going to be the higher paced fighter as well. And for France, the only upside I see would be a knockout, an early knockout. It's the only way he gets 100 points in this one because he's not going for takedowns. He doesn't want to go to the ground with Moreno, and he's just not a high enough volume guy to score well. As a super cheap guy, we don't need him to get 100 points. So I think any win probably gets it done, but he could win a 5-round decision and still maybe not score 10x. So I'm definitely more so on the Moreno side of this one. I think Moreno is good for 10x if he gets the win, but he also has 100 plus upside if he is going to look to grapple. He has 25-minute experience under the bright lights. So give me Moreno. He's going to be one of my favorite plays on the card. How do you feel about it?
I'm pretty much with you there on Moreno, but I'm also incredibly biased. He's one of my all-time favorite fighters. I absolutely love this guy, and him getting the belt wrapped around his waist is one of my favorite all-time moments in UFC history. So I'm extremely biased. I don't have a bet. I am picking Brandon Moreno. Kai Kara-France is that guy that's been disrespected and counted out basically every single time he has been in a big fight. You know, I picked against him last time in Askarov, and he showed out that night, man. He's not an easy guy to handle anymore. Training with some of the best at City Kickboxing. His takedown defense is on point. His scrambles are on point. He's got power. He's got fast hands. Like, I really don't want to count him out at a minus 200 price tag. So yeah, I'm picking Brandon Moreno to win this thing. I would not be shocked if we see a 25-minute violent fueled fight, and I hope that's what we get here. I hope my boy gets his hand raised at the end of it, but especially with my built-in bias here, I don't feel confident laying any money on Brandon Moreno, and I have a hard time seeing how he scores super well in this fight because I don't know that he finishes Kai Kara-France, and if he doesn't get that finish, yeah, he's going to score on volume. Maybe he does get some takedowns. You know, you'd hope he kind of pulls an Aljo and takes the back and gets some control time, but like, I don't know. I think there's some other round one quick finishers that are on this card that might score a little bit better. So unless you're taking the dog and looking for maybe that knockout bomb from Kai Kara-France, I might think this might be a fight to fade in DFS. It depends on how it plays out and how these guys play it. But yeah, I could see this one being kind of a 25-minute back and forth war.
Yeah, I won't have 100% of my lineups on this one because I could see a Moreno decision where he just scores, right around 10x, and that doesn't end up on the 200K lineup because people around him score more. So yeah, it wouldn't shock me at all. I think with all the ownership that this fight will get, if that's how you see it playing out, then maybe do go underweight to both sides of this fight. Not completely against that. The fade does make some sense here ownership wise. But I'm going to go with Moreno. I just think he can win this fight anywhere. I think he could put up a pace. I think he could finish anywhere and score the 100+ points, where I just don't really see that happening from France. So give me Moreno. And I think if I have a core play on the card, like a highest owned guy, I'm guessing it would be him. Okay. All right, final fight. We got the rematch from last year. Amanda Nunes minus 265 against the champion Juliana Pena plus 225. I know we're going to disagree on this one, so I'll let you start off. How do you see it going down?
Yeah, man, I'm just big on the Pena side. You know, I called the upset last time out, cashed in a big ticket on her as an underdog. I legitimately feel like if you were going to build a fighter in a lab to beat Amanda Nunes, you end up with Juliana Pena. Somebody who's tough, somebody who's durable, somebody who's not going to quit, good gas tank, good wrestling. We've seen this type of fighter cause problems for Amanda Nunes essentially over the course of her entire career. If you drag her deep, unless she is in the driver's seat, she does not respond well. So yeah, I cashed in on her last time. I see no reason not to go right back to the well. I'm on Juliana Pena yet again. I do think this fight is going to be a bit more interesting. I think that Amanda Nunes took it a bit more seriously. I expect better cardio from her. So it probably goes a little deeper, lasts a little bit longer, but I do think at the end of the day, Juliana Pena gets her hand raised. Maybe she gets a late type of finish. We'll see. No two fights ever play out the same, right? So I'm not expecting the exact same result as the last one. This one should be fun, but I'm heavily invested on the Juliana Pena side of things, and I wanted to retain that belt.
Yeah, if you're on Pena the first time, I don't see any reason that you'd switch it this time to Nunes, to be honest with you. Pena broke the slate last time with 110 DraftKings points. She got the submission in the second round of the fight, and she was like 4% owned on that card. Now
I was not playing DK that night.
That would have been a great night to play her because Nunes was like 60+% owned. Pena 4% owned, I believe. But now we're going to be looking at Pena like 40% owned as one of the cheapest fighters on the card, coming off a win where the same thing could happen. And Nunes, not only is she a little bit cheaper, but she's not going to be 60% owned again. She'll be closer to 40% owned as well. I mean, everyone knows how good Nunes is. I don't have to go over her background. She scores amazing when she wins DraftKings points as well. But she was winning that first fight. I kind of see this like as similar to the Conor McGregor-Nate Diaz fight, where Conor comes into that fight untouchable, huge favorite, clearly wins the first round, gets hit with some big shots and gasses out in the second round, gives up his neck, gets choked out. I feel like that's the exact same thing that happened in this fight. Nunes came in untouchable. No one gave Pena a chance here except for Clint. But she clearly won that first round. And then I don't know how the cardio would have been if she didn't get cracked, if she didn't get into a firefight in that second round, because she got cracked. She ate some big shots, and then she got into a firefight where she's throwing big loopy bombs and missing and just tiring herself out more and more. If she can just not get into a firefight, well, first of all, I don't know that she doesn't win a firefight. Like, she's never lost a firefight before, so I feel like it wasn't a bad idea for her at the time to go for it. Just go all out. You're probably going to be the stronger fighter. You'll knock out Pena, but it just didn't work out that way. You know, maybe it could work out that way for Nunes this time, but it's just not a smart idea. Just be a little bit more patient in this one. Do what you did in the first round. If you can have 5 rounds of cardio, which I think she could, because we've seen it before against better fighters, in my opinion, then I think we could see it again here. So I'm going to take Nunes. I like her to score well. I like her in all formats, but at the same time, I'm not going to completely count out Pena, because it wouldn't shock me if the cardio is not there for Nunes. Pena comes back, wins this fight after gassing her out. If Pena wins, she's definitely scoring 10x or more. If she wins, she's probably on the optimal lineup. But you're also competing with a lot more of the field this time than you were last time. So I'm going to take the discount. Give me Nunes. I'll be getting my leverage on the Nunes side, and I'll be underweight to Pena. But looking forward to it. Hopefully we get a good fight. Good luck if you're playing Pena again. It would be cool to cash 2 underdog bets on her. That'd be a nice way to end the Nunes career for you, I guess.
Yeah.
It would be pretty sweet.
I get your take on Nunes though, man. A buy low spot on the GOAT. It's hard to argue that.
Yeah, and I mean, but at the same time, motivation is an issue, of course. So I can't line her where I was going to line her in that first fight. I didn't see any value in that first fight, so I don't think I had a bet on her. But at the same time, I completely overlooked Pena, where I'm not going to be doing that this time. I will be getting a little bit of hedge exposure to Pena. It's just that I'll be underweight to the field, so I don't think those lineups will be helping me out all that much this time. But to end every single card, we like to do a kill shot where we pick somebody who might go under the radar on DraftKings, a little bit lower owned fighter who could be on that 200K lineup and help us get it done. Do you have somebody in mind?
Yeah, man, I'm actually going to go with Anthony Smith. I feel like he's a guy that could be extremely underrated here in this spot. He's a guy that could absolutely break the slate in a win. He's a finisher. So if he gets in the driver's seat against Magomed Ankalaev, a guy who, like I said before, we have seen wobbled, we have seen submitted, we have seen he is a good hammer, but he's a very questionable nail who's been able to squeeze by recently. If Anthony Smith is able to do what he says he can do, then that guy probably ruins all the big lineups, and I think he can score extremely well.
I like it. Yeah, it's a legit kill shot. He'll be pretty low owned. And if he gets a finish, he'll be on that optimal lineup, I'm sure. I'm going to go with Hamdi Abdelwahab just because I haven't seen anyone picking him. I don't think he'll get any ownership this week. And if he can get the win, I think he will score well. No confidence at all in this guy. Just more of a fade on Mays, if anything. But I will take Hamdi. I'll get some leverage there on DraftKings. But looking forward to this card. Hopefully we do get a big winner that's listening to the show right now. But if you have anything to promote, Clint, the time is yours.
I'm all good, man. Thank you very much for having me. Like I said before, it's always fun to talk fights with you, so I appreciate you bringing me on. As soon as we get the ceremonial face-offs, I'm going to do my undefeated post-weigh-in show and kind of wrap everything in a nice little package for the bettors and give my final thoughts on the card and stuff like that. That's really the only thing I've got coming up besides next week's podcast on Monday.
I like it. If you guys aren't already following him on Twitter, go follow him at Die Hard MMA Pod. He's a great follow on there, and TikTok as well. If you guys got a TikTok, you guys crushing it. But thanks, Clint, for coming on with me. Best of luck to you. Best of luck to everybody listening. Good luck. We'll see you guys next time.